that inflicted such crippling havoc on Pearl Harbor in December 1941. America is on the offensive. The Japanese have advanced deep into the South Pacific as far as they will ever reach. And the Allies are about to push them back. I'm here on the USS Constellation, one of the hardest hitting military units in the world. And it was these massive aircraft carriers that were instrumental in the war. They can be positioned in the oceans within strike range of any trouble spots. Now here, in the Pacific Ocean, half a century ago, these craft were instrumental. They delivered decisive blows to the enemy. And in amongst that, of course, is a lot of carnage. And so now I'm going to visit the islands, the jungles, and the underwater graves that we call the ghosts of war. In this chapter, the lost remnants of conflict hidden in tropical jungles and on the beaches of remote Pacific islands. The relics of ferocious suicide charges. And most chilling of all, the earthly remains of warriors entombed where they fell.
I will later. Kevon. Hey man, what's up? And I'll watch your videos later.
The greatest air and sea battles of history turned the Pacific into a massive graveyard of ships, aircraft, and men. More than 70,000 aircraft end their days in the waters and scattered islands of these appalling battlegrounds of World War II. The relics of these shattering conflicts are still being discovered, revealing the secrets of the horrifying past. Near the top of this hill in this really thick jungle, apparently there's a Catalina that come down, fully laden with bombs and blokes. The wreckage was once found and then lost. Now the jungle is give up one of its long-held secrets once again. How'd you be? 15 feet from it and it's hard to distinguish. Right there, look. So this is yet another tragic story where a Catalina laden with bombs had gone from Sano across to the Solomons, probably around Guadalcanal, looking for subs. On its way back, it missed the radar beacon. Fortunately, they ploughed into the side of the mountain, and when they did, some of the bombs had gone up and just totaled it. Just blew it all up. All 9 were dead. Judging by the thickness and the shape, this would be an armoured pilot seat. I guess all the crew, the pilots and everyone would have been obliterated when the bombs went off though. So this wing would have snapped off on impact. Still reasonably intact. Here she is. Here's the seat. Look at that. Even the paint, the bluey grey, the circle, it's still intact. The Catalina is a workhorse of the Pacific War. Reconnaissance, transport, anti-submarine, and because it can land on water, an air-sea rescue plane that saved lives of so many downed airmen. The Japanese were counting on pretty heavy engagement in naval battles. And a lot of times that never actually happened. In fact, ships never really saw each other and used their guns on each other. It was war with planes. It was war from air-based carriers, just like this one. The biggest carrier battles ever seen are a part of a new kind of war, where more ships are blown apart and sunk by carrier-based aircraft than anything else. "10,000 ships. Just think of it. 10,000 sink to the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. All of them memorials to the millions of people who died in this theatre of war. The sunken wrecks are scattered with relics. And how's this? Still intact, a Japanese gas mask. A ghostly reminder that these devastating...
This is a show called Ghosts of War, a short series that I don't know, to the best of my knowledge, there's only 2 episodes that Steve Irwin did before he got killed by that stingray in 2006. He was able to get Ghosts of War done. So this is basically a documentary on World War II. So it's a bit of education. But the reason I'm doing this anyway is not just that, but I was always interested in World War II and all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm not becoming a educational channel, 'cause I'm still a gaming channel. I just am interested in like World War II, Vietnam, Gettysburg, that kind of stuff.
Ships were filled with living, breathing human beings. Boom! And this hull has been split open by a huge explosion.
Plus, I used to watch Steve Irwin when I was younger, and I always liked watching him, kind of like everybody else. So it's not just education, but in a way, it's remembering Steve and everything he did before he got murked by a harmless stingray.
Can you feel the eeriness of this wreckage? And I go from wreck to wreck, not just ships, but also planes. They're all laying on the bottom, and some of them, they'll never be explored. Never a diver shall reach them. This plane's in really deep water, perhaps never been dived on before. And as I look down into the cockpit, I see a body that hasn't been discovered.
Bye, Kevon.
Normally, any servicemen are recovered quickly and accurately. And here's one that hasn't been found. This pilot, he never made it out of the cockpit. Mid-1942, and the supply lines between the US and Australia are under threat from Japan's southernmost base, Guadalcanal in the Solomon Islands. Guadalcanal is the first time the Americans mount a major amphibious assault. A massive bombardment prepares the way for the troops 8 months to the day after Pearl Harbor, a dawn landing on a coral sand beach. This is Red Beach, the absolute start of the invading forces of Guadalcanal. Here was the start of the campaign. If you can imagine, coming around that headland, that peninsula, around about 4:30 in the morning, just a bit earlier than this, was 52 ships, American ships, coming around. And what they did was they split up. Half of them went straight over there to Tulagi, right? And that's where the Japanese had a big stronghold in an old colonial settlement. So they went over there, the other half split up, come over here. Right on the end of that peninsula, that one just in there, that's Henderson Airfield. Rightio, so that was their target. They split up. The fighting in Tulagi was fierce. That's where the bonsai took place, die for the Emperor. over there. Actually, the Americans took it out. Over here, it was a little different. It was mainly construction workers. Oh, you know, there was a few guns and that for sure. But when they took this bit on, at about 3 or 4 miles, get back down to the airstrip, they were virtually unopposed. So they swept in and took the airfield really quickly. The Japanese defenders are stunned. They have no idea the Americans are coming. It's the first time in the war the Japanese expansion is halted, and they can hardly believe it. The victorious Americans finish the airfield with Japan's own resources and name it Henderson Field after a fallen Green Buddy. Reinforcements fly in and the troops relax, with no idea of the firestorm that's about to be unleashed in 6 months of carnage. Control of the air is everything in the Pacific. Whoever has air superiority will win the war. This tower, which is still really well intact, was actually built by the US military once they took over. And this is what it was all about. This airstrip, right here. A couple of miles of airstrip. I might add, this airstrip was very significant. If you can imagine, if the Japanese had been able to hang on to this and rule it, then they would have probably controlled the entire South Pacific, because from here, they could run sorties out into the Pacific, virtually spread out like fingers, anywhere they wanted to strike a decisive blow. Woo, 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 woo. Send their planes out back. The true battle at Guadalcanal begins just 1 day after the Americans take the island airstrip. The Allied Navy suffers one of its worst whoopings ever in the first of many punishing sea battles in the surrounding Solomon Islands. Wave after wave of Japanese attackers zero in on Henderson Field. The Japanese warships drop a nightly barrage on the strip. American defenders rebuild after every raid and fight back in a relentless cycle of attack, rebuild, defend, attack. Well, here we go. It's like P-38. That's what it is. So you can see this is one engine, P-38 Lightning. They've got 2 engines. So that's one. There's a wing here. This should be the cockpit about here. Twin engine. This was the answer in speed to the Zero. Japanese Zero, it reigned dominant in the Pacific for many, many years because they were fast. They had superior air power. But these P-38s, they made up quick time. Twin engine. Here's the cockpit. Okay. Oh, yeah. Pilot would have been sitting down in here, one engine there, going flat out like a lizard drinking. Taking a whooping. Even the perspex is still there. Even here too, look. That's perspex. P-38 Lightning. What a beauty. The Japanese fight back on the ground as well, landing elite troops and heavy artillery. This is a field artillery gun. Big, heavy duty. Look at the size and the diameter. Check out the size of the slug that they spit. What a beauty. You've got the crew, your gunnery crew here. Stand back. Boom. And when these things have hit hard, imagine that coming down at the other end. Have a look at this. It's got the writing right on it. So I'm not sure what that says, but it probably says this is one big heck of a gun.
Imagine if Godzilla was made in World War II. Imagine that. Like, literally, the U.S. and the Japanese team up against one radioactive monster that would still defeat them all. But they would team up for once against something that's more than themselves. Imagine that. Godzilla was made in World War II instead of 1954. Imagine that. And then you got the U.S. Americans, and then the Japanese teaming up against one radioactive monster. Even if they're still defeated, they're still teaming up against that thing. Imagine that. That would be really, really cool, honestly.
The first Japanese attempt to retake Guadalcanal is a miserable failure. They think the Americans will be a pushover and commit only 900 men, all of them wiped out in a thoughtless charging attack. While the Japanese use palm trees for deadly sniper attacks, the Allies see them as observation points. Concealed Australian troops act as coast watchers, relaying Japanese ship and troop movements to the Allied planners. And here in the Solomon Islands, they're joined by the local islanders. Whew. Nice breeze up here, that's for sure. Just a bit of a battle getting up here. But now that I'm 60 foot up,
Hey, 4Gamers.
I can see every single thing that's going on around me. And if I was sitting quiet enough and still enough, used a bit more foliage as camouflage, I could sit up here with a radio, call the shots, no problem at all. The big problem wasn't too many people that could scale these coconut trees to do it.
Hey, I'll be right back, gang. We'll continue watching this in a minute. I just gotta do something quick. I'll be right back. Hey, Dad. Mom went to go get dinner. All right. I'm back. Let's pick up where we left off.
The Solomon Islanders, real good at it. Very, very clever. And climbing coconut trees from when they were born. They could climb a coconut tree before they could run on the beach. And so they were great. Up in these sentry positions, checking it out, reporting back down to the boys, sending the message across, so as manoeuvres and strategies could be planned from one position just like this. You can only imagine what it was like. Dense jungle, incredible, and death waiting at every turn. Something like this. Imagine bullets zipping around, minefields going off, booty traps, people getting shot, blood and guts all over the place. And then getting ready, listening for the command. Okay, we go.
Go, Steve, go!
This was America's first major offensive land battle in the Pacific, and their first experience at tropical jungle, hand-to-hand fighting.
You got it.
We fight to survive. Everyone was getting hit and hit hard. Mates were lost by bullets, bayonets, and bombs. In the end, the battle intensified for mastery of the skies over Guadalcanal, with over 300 planes lost in the first month.
Jesus. It's crazy.
Have this little beauty. It's a torpedo bomber. See these flaps here in the aluminium? I reckon there's the what you put in. Here's the cockpit in here. Torpedo bomber. They weren't the most effective plane in World War II, but their role was to strap torpedoes. Ooh, a bit hard on the bottom. Strap torpedoes underneath, go in slow and low, line it up, drop the torpedo, and zoom them in. But they had a great idea. You had a gunner, and this is his little turret. His machine gun would mount on this here, on this bracket here. You've got to slide it around. Oh boy, this is a Grumman Wildcat. Basically, they're aircraft carrier based. The carrier based planes are crucial in their role of trying to stop the Japanese attacks on Guadalcanal. Hasn't done too bad at all. Oh. Hey, how's this? Check this out. The wings fold back so they can be stacked on the aircraft carrier.
That's cool. That is genius. That's also really cool.
Right on the gear. So many pilots never made it back to the deck, and among the survivors, horrific injuries include massive burns.
Give it a
Someone you
no. None of that. No. Nope, none of that. There we go. That's better.
The aluminium doesn't rust. It oxidizes a little, but it's not too bad. So this is reasonably intact. And this is one ghost of war that's probably going to be around for a long, long time. And the jungle, as you can see, the vines, creepers just coming all over it. They're engulfing. Henderson Field is virtually surrounded by Japanese, and they mount a big new offensive, pushing to the very edge of the airfield. How thick is this kunai grass? And this is what the soldiers were up against. If you can imagine, while they were scarpering up these extreme inclines, pew, 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 they were getting shot at from positions that they couldn't even see. Sometimes luck would have it, they'll see the spit, the spark coming out of the rifles and the machine guns, out of the foxholes and the trenches and the dig-ins that the Japanese had all through here. Imagine that, the Banzai charges, and the Japanese were trying to take Bloody Ridge. It was a crucial point. Henderson Airstrip's right there. If they could secure this position, they would have had a real good show at taking it over. This is the point where Japanese expansion in the South Pacific is finally halted. The outnumbered Americans on Guadalcanal are destroying the myth of Japanese invincibility.
Yeah.
The US Marines hung on, and they're able to push them back and push them back. The loss of life, the Japanese loss of life, piled up. All of these valleys and hills.
Thank you.
Down through here, Japanese, injured, wounded, they were in a bad way. Oh yeah, this is good, this is good. Have a look, see, it's positioned on top of the hill, on the crest of the hill, facing out this way. So I reckon this would have been a little machine gun nest. Look at that. Japanese rifle. Crikey. Both sides go into raging battles, weakened by malaria, dengue fever, dysentery, and jungle rot that is eating away at their skin. The loss of life is incredible. 24,000 Japanese troops to the Americans' 3,000.
That's crazy. And despite this war being so messed up, it's still really cool to see how it turned out. That's what fascinated me about World War II and World War stuff like this. This stuff fascinated me a lot.
Awesome loss of life. And I'm standing on the very chunk of dirt where all these blokes lost their life. Even to this day, it's eerie. The sun's dropped down over the Pacific. It's dark, it's still. Scary stuff. It's almost like as we get further into this sweep through the Pacific, I've discovered there's an even bigger story for me to tell. It's almost become a personal quest. If you can imagine, way north of here, my dad's dad was killed. My grandfather was killed during World War II. And just 4 weeks after that, when his dad found out, he also died. He lost his son, and it was a real tragedy. But it goes beyond that. My beautiful wife, Terry's dad, was on the USS Boise, fighting for us, fighting for me, Australians, right down here. It was beautiful. And I'm going to try really hard not to cry when I talk about the human sacrifice. And this human sacrifice is actually a part of my family tree, my family link, my heritage. War is all about human sacrifice. While the blokes were fighting hard on land, the savage battles taking place at sea saw huge losses of life on both sides. I've travelled over 600 miles from Australia to get to this very point. Just around the corner there, that is Cape Esperance. That island in the background over there, that's Savo. The Cape Esperance battle took place right here. The Japanese were coming down through here to reinforce Guadalcanal. They had tens of thousands of troops to put in here. The US fleet came up and swung around in the night and formed a T-section like this. If you can imagine, whoa. Here's Savo, here's Guadalcanal, and here is Cape Esperance, right here. Japanese fleet were coming down through here. The US fleet was coming up through here. And then what they did was they formed a T-section. So all of their guns were facing forward so they could hit the Japanese, oncoming Japanese. Boom, 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 boom. And this is the beauty of it all, is that Terry's dad, Clarence Rains, was on the USS Boise, right out there, October 11, 1942, when this big battle took place. The T-section was a great formation to take the Japanese head on. The battle took place, bombs going off, it was just hellacious, absolutely going ballistic. Boise took a hit, a direct hit in the forward turret, and flames and that just engulfed the ship. Luckily enough, it had a pretty thin skin, and so the water rushed in and flooded the magazine. They were crippled, but they weren't dead in the water.
I gotta pause this for a minute. I'm gonna go ahead and use my tripod so I can eat my dinner. Here we go. There we go. Let's do this. There. Now I don't have to hold it and I can eat my dinner. Oh. Oh.
And Terry's dad survived. He was down in the middle of the ship, and he tells some horrendous stories of coming up top, guys burnt to their gun turrets, the whole place on fire, this acrid smell just coming up from the Boise. And thank God Terry's dad lived. World War II, did my grandfather, my great-grandfather, and all the other fathers and grandfathers' sons and husbands die for nothing? I don't think so. I hope not. Never take it for granted. Virtually right out here off this reef is an A1 class Japanese sub, and it was rammed by two New Zealand vessels, minesweepers, the Moa and the Kiwi. Bang! They rammed it and took it out, and it's sitting. Its nose is up and around about 5 metres of water, and it goes back down into about 50 as the reef drops off so severely. All of this is volcanic. Your drop-offs are incredible. The war in the Pacific is all about supply lines. And like everywhere else, submarines and anti-submarine units are in the thick of the action around Guadalcanal. The I-1 submarine finally runs itself onto a submerged reef after fighting back against the New Zealand frigates. Just one Japanese officer is pulled alive from the sea. The fates of the rest are unknown, probably entombed in this sunken ghost of war.
Hey, Leanne GoPro. What's up?
Who knows how many Allied lives are saved by the heroic sinking of the I-1? An amazing Japanese success is revealed only after the war. In the face of defeat, they secretly slipped 12,000 troops off Guadalcanal. Meanwhile, 600 miles to the south, to help counter the triumphant Japanese sweep through the South Pacific, a small Allied outpost in Vanuatu is frantically transformed into a vital strongpoint. Vanuatu.
Hey, Leanne GoPro 777. What's up, man?
Santo Island, which was a huge staging point for the US. If you can imagine, at any one given time, there could have been up to 100,000 troops stationed on here, ready to spread out through the Pacific, particularly out to Guadalcanal. Lots of ships, lots of machinery, all here. 500,000 men passed through Santo, grateful for some R&R, and by Christ, they deserve it after fighting on the bloody battleground throughout the Pacific. And amongst the luckiest men to reach the island are the thousands of troops aboard the President Coolidge. She was a converted ocean liner, and the ship was hit by a massive explosion at the entry to Santo Harbor after running the gauntlet of Japanese subs, planes and warships for thousands of miles. So the President Coolidge is probably one of the more famous wreck dives in the world. If you can imagine, it was carrying 5,000 troops, US Marines from America to Santo, to here, commonly known as the New Hebrides back then. And it took the wrong channel on the way in. Everything was going pretty rosy, really. And they came on in and they hit a friendly mine, if there's any such thing, because it actually sunk them. But you know what? As luck would have it, there was only 2 people that died out of 5,000. That's pretty good odds, it really is. And it's one heck of a dive. You can go into these huge, big penetrations, pitch black, beautiful stuff. Gorgeous. Lots of fish life down there. And some big guns, really big guns. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to find some rifles as well. Apparently on the promenade deck, there's a few rifles still intact. Let's get them. The President Coolidge lies on her side on a sloping bottom from around about 100 feet to over 250 feet deep. And these portholes, they're actually skylights above what used to be the main lounge. Still perfect, absolutely perfect condition. And take a look at this. The most famous artifact on the ship, the lovely lady with a unicorn, once the centerpiece of the games and smoking room. Still in great condition. And even further into the ship, another reminder of her days as a luxury liner. This is a mosaic tiled fountain. And deeper, the relics of war, supplies that never reached the troops. And down in the infirmary, I find instruments and medicines to treat the wounded. It's like a living museum, exactly where it all happened almost 60 years ago. Heavy machine guns installed on the President Coolidge to defend the ship against air attack. Yet the only real threat came from their own side. And check out these heavy-duty naval guns, still aimed forward, firmly on the mounts that were fitted when the ship was converted from liner to troop ship. And here's the famous promenade deck, where the last troops on board were ordered to dump their weapons and anything else that might weigh them down so they could jump overboard and swim to safety. The USS Tucker is another victim of its own side's defences. A destroyer ripped apart by a single explosion just outside the port.
All right, hold on. We're almost done with this, but I just need to... I'm going to hold on to my phone now so you guys can watch it while I'm drinking my orange soda that I got with my lunch. There you go.
The USS Tucker, somewhere underneath me. And what happened was, as it was coming into port, it hit a friendly mine. Blew it, almost broke its backbone. They tried to get it up on land, it didn't work. All right, let's go have a look. The USS Tucker will be one of the most enduring underwater ghosts of war because her superstructure was built of stainless steel. And now, even more than half a century later, it's still intact. Have a look how shiny that stainless is. Anything that's not stainless is slowly but surely decaying away. The salt water just doesn't penetrate the stainless to a point where even the hinges work. Here's a place called $1 Million Point where the American forces dumped unbelievable amounts of machinery, spares and supplies when they shut down the Sando base at the end of the war. Everything like this forklift was bulldozed into the sea. An incredible underwater monument. There's stuff everywhere. It's November 1943, and the Allied Task Force assembles in the Central Pacific. 35,000 Marines, soldiers and sailors for the first ever amphibious landing. The Allies are moving in to take Japan's most easterly fortified base, the tiny island of Basio on the coral atoll of Tarawa. from the air, a tropical hideaway. But in World War II, Japanese Admiral Shibasaki says it's a fortress that will resist 1,000 men for 100 years. Both sides have no idea of what they're facing. Airstrikes follow the artillery, but the bombardment ends too early. The Japanese have time to regroup and defend the beaches solidly. But the landing is a disaster. The pounding has barely scratched the surface of the Japanese defences. The incoming Marines, they're getting cut to ribbons. Everything was against them. They were getting massacred on arrival, getting split apart by shells and Western cooking. 2 years after Pearl Harbor, the Battle of Tarawa took place. Let me show you what happened. They had Red Beach 1, Red Beach 2, Red Beach 3. So the first wave came in here. They got pinned up against the wall, couldn't do too much. Red Beach 2 couldn't get too far. Really heavy casualties. The landing was a shocker. Hundreds of Marines die on the first day. Practically every Japanese soldier survived the bombardment. They were buried in deep, thick under the sand, and the surviving US Marines huddled against a Japanese defensive seawall, pinned down with nowhere to go.
That's when they needed Godzilla. That's when they needed Godzilla to just destroy the Japanese. That is if he was real. I'm just saying if he was made during this time and he was the US's ally instead of foe, even though in reality they would basically fight, they would team up and then they would fight him. I'm just saying if he was the US's ally, he would have just dominated. He literally would have just dominated the entire Japanese, and then World War II would have been won because the US had a giant radioactive lizard by their side. That would have been an awesome thing in the pages of history, even though it never happened.
To the Amtrak's landing craft and trapped on shallow reef. The Marines are in a world of trouble. Can you imagine? I just done a couple of 100 yards from the coral. I've made it to the beach. I'm underneath those 50 caliber machine guns, but I've got to make it to the wall. I'm one of the lucky ones. One of the few, one of the percentage that made it to the wall. So now, we've got to try and take him out. How the heck are we going to do that? Stick your head up. Woo, sniper takes you in the head. Not much you can do, except for these. Grenades. This is a US grenade. Pull again. Amtraks. These Amtraks, there was only a few of them that made it up the beach, across the coral, and got to here. So here's two. The reason they call them Amtraks, you can see they've got the Caterpillar track type, which made them capable of getting across the reef flats and getting to here really close. So these were in the first wave of attack on Red Beach 2. So that's Red Beach 1 there. This is Red Beach 2. Only a few Amtraks made it up the beach, and they were stopped at the wall. Only 4 tanks get ashore at all on that first horrific day. Ooh. So it's a Mark II Sherman tank. Now what happened was a plane came over and dropped a 500-pound bomb right here, blew a huge big hole. As the Sherman tank was coming in, unfortunately, she rolled straight into the hole of the bomb, and you can see her gun turret pointing down. But what she did was she used machine gun to back up the troops that kept storming up the beach. The only reason they made any headway here at all is just sheer manpower. They just kept coming in and coming in and coming in. Now this is a part of the old wall, the old fortification, right along the beach. It provided a lot of cover for any of the Marines that made it this far, but it was also one heck of a barrier. On the other side over there, where they never had this rock wall fortification, was just a whole stack of coconut logs placed, sometimes 4 deep, and then sand. Excellent. Probably as good, if not better than concrete, because it could take big impact. And the little slits that they had in them, you couldn't see, you couldn't shoot through them. Very hard to see the enemy that you were trying to knock out. If the Japanese counterattack at this point with the Marines hidden behind the wall, the invasion will fail. But there is one success from the bombardment. It destroys enemy communications and they can't coordinate their defences. Green Beach was really significant. They couldn't take it on Red 1 or 2. Black Beach was out of the question. So Green was one of the only ways they could actually penetrate into the Tarawa campaign to get onto Baggio Island. Fierce fight, hand to hand, the whole 9 yards, and up they came. It actually busted through. The wall stretches right around the island, but one officer notices a tiny bridge and redirects his Marines away from his assigned target and gets through the gap. What a hero! And this was the end of the airstrip, right here. So they pushed up through and they were able to hit the Japanese from behind and from the side. Once they got that weakness, that's where they started. It was like a zipper. Started pulling the zipper and in they went. The invasion plans for Tarawa are a complete failure. It is only the courage of individual Marines in small units getting over the sea wall that pushed back the Japanese. And the prize was the airstrip. But what a cost. The island is shredded and it still hasn't fully recovered from those 4 days of fighting. The scale of the fortified Japanese defences on Baggio Island become obvious only after the battle. This is real thick steel at the front here. Be over an inch thick. Look at this. The biggest hit was right in the barrel. Just took off the first couple of thirds of the barrel, split it here. Look how thick. I can get my whole hand, half a hand inside there. That's how thick the steel is. Really, really good condition. People are looking after this one, and it's a great chunk of history. This tiny Atoll Island is the most heavily defended beach, yard for yard, anywhere in the Pacific War. There are hundreds of heavily protected guns right around it with ammo and fire control bunkers hidden away underground in bomb-proof shelters. And they worked real good. So we're right on the edge of Red 3 Beach, straight over there. And this is the mount for a 5-inch double-barrel anti-naval gun. You can see barrel would have gone up here, one up there. They're probably back down in the ocean on the beach there. And this is what they used to spit out. Have a look at that for a slug. Here's the detonator right on the end. So you can see where that pushes in. Boom, detonates all the TNT inside there. This is just solid steel. Imagine when that hit the ship, she'd have blown up. Interesting though, there's a live one stuck in here. You wouldn't want to muck with that. That is live. The TNT inside there still could blow up. And these things were poised, positioned, ready to take on any naval vessels that come in close enough to spit these big pills at them. Now we get get an idea, a graphic idea of why the severe bombing of this island didn't have any effect. Have a look how thick that is. Massive. And on top of it, right on top, was piled sand, coconut trees, the limbs, you know, the big log. So when they bombed it, that took all the impact, made no difference. This is actually the generator. But as the Allied forces got up the beach, they noticed the ventilator shaft on the left-hand side. You see those holes? That's the only ventilation that this building had. And so to take it out, a very, very brave man poured fuel in here, dropped a grenade. He got shot in the process, but that boom, blew up inside, starved him for oxygen. Everyone inside here died. Tarawa was the wildest fight. Every building, every pillbox, and every Japanese defender had to be individually attacked and overcome as they fought practically to the last man. And when the Japanese realised that their battle was lost, they destroy anything the Allies might use and retreat to the far end of the island. And the last 500 Japanese soldiers regroup for 2 suicidal banzai charges at the American lines. So this is Admiral Shibasaki's command post. This is his headquarters. Have a look at the size of the holes that have been belted through that concrete by 4-inch naval guns, probably armour-piercing. Busted all the Rio up, smashed it right up. That's some firepower for you. You know, they hit it square on straight through here, but all of the bombing that came from the air and when they were lobbing naval bombs over never had an effect. Another big one here. A big giant one up there too. The Battle of Tarawa didn't go quite according to plan, but the lessons learned paved the way for the Allied march across the Pacific and gives warning of the price that both sides will pay. Over 4,000 Japanese and 1,000 Americans lay dead on Bayshio Island.
That's crazy.
Have a look at these. Hard to think that shell may have even gone through a US Marine or a Japanese soldier. And it is one of the smallest, and yet probably the most powerful ghost of war I'm ever going to encounter. Too right. And no matter which side you're on, imagine the beach covered with your dead mates. This has been the most emotional journey of my life, and it's given me a rare glimpse into the lives of those who fought so hard for their country and so far from home. It really tears at your heart. The sacrifice, the carnage is incredible. Please join me on our next chapter of Ghosts of War, where we get back out into the Pacific and we have a look and we discover even more heavily charged emotion and some even more devastating Ghosts of War.
And that is the end of episode 1 of Steve Irwin the Goat's Adventures Ghosts of War. If you guys have enjoyed it like I have, make sure you like it. Consider subscribing for more Steve Irwin. I will be doing more of him in the future because I'm not just a gaming channel, but I also like to react and all that other stuff. Comment down below what's your favorite part. So besides liking it, commenting, make sure you share it with those that you trust. Make sure you stay notified. Subscribe if you are new or returning, because I got lots of fun content on the way. I have more Batman on the way. I have Resident Evil on the way. Alligator Games, Disney Speedstorm, Dragon Ball Z again. I got Luigi's Mansion, Sonic the Hedgehog, Walking Dead, DreamWorks Dragons, Dawn of New Riders, Jumanji, Mario, Borderlands, all that stuff. So if you're interested in that stuff, then again, consider subscribing. It only takes a moment. It helps out with my growth. I'm at 2.68k subscribers. I'm 2 subs away from 2.70. We're on the road to 3k. And with all that being said, take care. Have a great, wonderful rest of your night. And peace.